Hi, I'm Dr. Kim Logan Nolan.
And I'm Arthur Nolan.
Welcome to Making It Work. Welcome back to Making It Work. Arthur, our topic today, having to hold for better or for worse. What comes to mind when you hear have to hold for better or for worse?
The marriage vows.
The marriage vows.
Yes.
Okay.
It just sounds so significant,
okay.
you know, and it sounds like something that I've heard at the ceremonies on a consistent basis. So that flashes through my mind immediately.
What are some of the components to have and to hold for better or for worse? What do we need? Some of the ingredients.
Establishing positive communication.
I agree.
You know, being friends, Kim.
Yes.
And also having the ability to forgive.
Forgive. I also think about spirituality and the importance of having spirituality, because that to me is the glue to the relationship. Well, today on our program we have two lovely people, man and wife, having to hold for better or for worse. We want to welcome to Making It Work, Mr. and Mrs. Dennis and Sharon Wallace. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Listen, we want you to tell us your testimony. Will you do that for us?
Of course.
All right. Tell us how you met, where you went to school. Tell us your story.
Well, prior to meeting her, just give you a quick little background. My mother was murdered when I was 5. My father was murdered when I was 6 years old. Grew up in the system pretty much. Didn't know God, didn't know too much about the Bible. At the time, I was a fugitive, and Brother Todd, who I had been introduced to by Jack and Sheldon Bright, who later became my parents, gave me an opportunity to work at Camp Wagner in Cassopolis, Michigan.
Okay.
I got to work there in the kitchen. But prior to meeting her, I had met her there before. He had hired her also to work in the kitchen.
Okay.
And I was her supervisor.
All right.
Now, I recognized her before because she also went to Maranatha, where her father was the pastor, Pastor Charles Willis.
And Maranatha is a Seventh-day Adventist church in Detroit, Michigan. Right. Okay.
And I was there as in a little singing group from Burns, and I saw her doing some things up front, and I was impressed by her. Later on, I would see her at Burns for graduation, getting ready for a coronation.
Okay. So you saw her on different occasions?
Saw her on different occasions.
All right. Then from camp, you went on and you met each other and you started dating at Oakwood University in Huntsville, Alabama.
Well, we actually started dating at Camp Wagner, and the only reason why I went to Oakwood was because I didn't want her to go down there and meet any of them smart guys.
Okay.
and it'd be over for me.
Okay.
So I jumped on the Greyhound bus, duffel bag, a couple $100, and a diploma from Oakwood, from Mumford High School with a 1.79 GPA, no SATs, no ACTs, hadn't taken a test and any of that. So
and you just drove down to Oakwood.
Drove down to Oakwood. Someone at the bus station took me to the college, where I took the entrance test and failed it miserably.
Wow.
They put me on academic probation, and so then she came down, and I got to reunite with my now new girlfriend.
Okay.
So what happened when you came down?
When you saw him?
I was ecstatic. I was happy to see him, and I asked him what he had done already to get into school, where he was staying, was he in a dorm. So I helped him go through the process of applying and helping him fill out the forms to get into school.
Okay.
And then once he got into school, like he said, he was on academic probation. So then I showed him the library on campus and how to study, how to do research, how to, organize his time. And he made the dean's list in the first semester.
Wow. So you dated all that time. You both graduated from Oakwood University.
Yes. I ended up graduating. We had a child. Our sophomore year, our junior year, and my senior year.
You had children?
Yes.
Right.
Were you married?
Yes.
You had gotten, wait a minute, when did you all get married?
Summer of...
July 31st, 1993.
Was that your freshman year? Was that your freshman year?
That was after our freshman year.
So you knew that was it, and you said, I'm going to marry this man. And so you had 3 children. All right, but Dennis, you stayed in school and you finished your degree. All right, what was your degree in?
Theology.
You graduated in theology.
You graduated in theology. Never had any idea that this is something that you wanted to be.
No idea. Actually, when I went to Oakwood, I wasn't going to Oakwood to go to school. One, I was already running. As I said, I was a fugitive from the police. I had already been hiding in the shelter over there at Cadillac and Harper, right down from Burns.
In Detroit.
In Detroit. So, the police are not going to a shelter to look for anybody, and they're not checking too many college campuses either.
So you were still on the run when you were at Huntsville?
Yes.
You were still on the run. You were a fugitive?
Yes.
Okay.
So after you graduated, and Sharon, you didn't graduate. So after you graduated, you guys made a decision to come back here?
Well, what happened was I was working with Eric Thomas. He had a program called Breaking the Cycle, and I would get on the radio with him every now and then. I was also working with Mayor Loretta Spencer with my Because He Lives Ministries, and so we had a lot of off-campus things. We did the very first Family Fun Day in Meadow Hills, sat on the Weed and Seed Committee. So we were doing some things. So you had a lot of things
going on.
Right, we were doing some things in Huntsville. But if somebody got homesick, and I told her Detroit is not a good place for me to be. We were expecting to get a call. Matter of fact, I was so confident that I was going to get one. I didn't send but one resume out, and it was to Lake Region. So at the time, I was really full of myself. Samuel Thomas told me that one day I had preached at New Life at Harold Cleveland's church. I was his associate pastor, and he told me I was going to be the next EE, and my head began to swell, and I was going places preaching, and people were being baptized. And when I didn't get that call, it crushed me. Yeah. And so I tried to do things outside of the Adventist church, just doing ministry, and it didn't catch on either. Wow. So when we moved back to Detroit, I was pretty much, had given up. I sent out other resumes, nothing happened, and so I had given up. And so we were staying with her parents, and that didn't work right. And so my old life, a friend from my old past came by, and he told me, said, "Man, look, you'll always be a hustler. You gotta understand what you're trying to do, but God don't want you broke." So
that's what your friend said.
That's what my friend said. Well, actually, my cousin.
Okay.
And what was his line of work?
It was selling drugs.
Selling drugs.
So I got back into the drug business, 10 toes flat.
So you're living with your in-laws.
Living with the in-laws.
And you have 3 babies.
3 babies.
And your cousin had indicated to you that God doesn't want you broke.
Right, and it just wasn't as simple as that. See, I learned the book at Oakwood. I learned theology at Oakwood. I learned how to be a preacher at Oakwood. I learned how to be an Adventist at Oakwood, but I didn't have any faith. See, I was self-sufficient. I've been self-sufficient my whole life. I've always been able to just do things. So when I got home, I gave it a chance. Okay, try to get to work, try to get with her father and do some things, and didn't happen. Was ready to get out of the house, so I went right back to doing what I used to do. Okay. And we moved into North Park Towers. Wow. And
so it became very lucrative for you.
So my plan was just to do it a little bit, and then I was angry at the church. I was mad
because they didn't give you a call.
Because I didn't get a call.
So wait a minute, now Sharon, you knew your husband was selling drugs? You knew?
Not in the beginning.
Not in the very beginning.
Not even in the middle. She kind of had an ideal of what I was doing, but it wasn't until I really came clean, because one thing I can always tell you about my wife is that you can't do anything too bad or too horrible to where, she'll judge you or treat you a certain way. That was one of the reasons why when I first came to the church, coming to the Adventist church as a single man, you kind of have a choice, but she was my choice because she was patient, she waited, and she showed me what I thought, if a Christian, I didn't know what a Christian looked like, I would have thought that that's what it looked like, would have had to look like her.
Okay, so Sharon, let me ask you this now. You got 3 babies. Your husband's now, he's selling drugs. Did you ever say, listen, you got to stop this or I'm gone? You all right? Did you ever say that?
That didn't happen until right before he got arrested.
Okay, tell me what happened, Sharon.
I had been praying and praying and praying, going to church without him, doing all this stuff. But I always prayed, Lord, save him, but don't take him away from me. Save him, but don't hurt him. I was giving God conditions. And then about 2 weeks, he had went through, he was not only selling, but this time he was using very heavily.
Using what?
Cocaine.
Cocaine.
He was using cocaine very heavily, and it was just, at that point, it got too much for me. He would be gone. My kids would be at the house. I would lock them up, and I'd be in the car looking all around for him. Just driving, not knowing where I was going.
Mercy.
And I would just be like, okay, and I would come back home. And then so 2 weeks prior to him getting arrested, I prayed, Lord, I remember standing in the window of the upstairs bedroom, and I said, Lord, whatever it takes to save him. I don't care anymore. I just want him saved. By whatever means necessary.
Mercy.
So what happened with the charge that you was originally running from?
Well, actually, in '95, that's why I ended up leaving Oakwood. I left Oakwood. We came back home. I was racing some. I worked at Westside Chevrolet.
Okay.
And so we had Camaros, and a friend of mine worked at a Ford company. They had Mustangs. So we raced one night, and I ended up getting caught the following day. And I just got tired of running. So normally when I get pulled over, I would just change something and they would let me go. This time I just told them, I said, look, you guys are looking for me. My name is Dennis Wallace. Here's my ID. He didn't believe me. He went back there, and then he was like, yeah, we've been looking for you for a long time. And so they took me to jail, and I ended up meeting Elder David Baxter, who was a court clerk at the clerk, and he's also an elder at the church.
Okay, so hold on. So is this the first charge or
This is the first charge.
The very first
charge? So we're not on the second. Okay.
I was actually pregnant with our middle child, Stephen, at the time.
Okay.
Now, when you guys say first charge, that's the first charge I had when I was with her.
Right.
There were other charges prior to that. Right.
Okay.
And so that scared me. You know, she already knew what was at stake. We discussed this 1,000 times, had planned on what to do, what was put up. So
you had a prevention.
Right. So we knew that one day that this was going to happen. And not just that, but I always wanted to turn myself in. I wanted to just get it over with. So we finally got it over with. Like I said, Elder Baxter was a clerk there. Her father came and spoke on my behalf. The judge actually said that you've done more in these last 2 years at Oakwood than you've done your whole life. And so we're going to continue with the probation that you've already violated several times, but you have to go back to Oakwood.
Wow.
That was a stipulation that he had to go back to school.
And at the time, I was just a social work major. Now I'm a theology major.
Wow.
So now I've seen God do some things, but I'm still not quite sure yet. So I go back this time as a theology major, and I'm on fire now.
You're on fire.
Vegan. I'm studying. I'm preaching everywhere I can go. I'm telling anybody who wants to know, or even if you don't want to know, we're going in the projects. We're going everywhere. I was like really on fire at that time in my life.
Let me stop you. For those who don't know what a vegan is an individual who does not use any dairy products, eat any meat or any type of poultry, any aspects, but especially nothing is all from the ground. All right. So you were eating fruits and vegetables. All right.
So you're back at Oakwood. And you stayed there till you got your degree in
Stayed there, got a few jobs, got my degree at Oakwood. Theology, like I said, was waiting for a call. It didn't happen. Disappointed.
And that's when you guys came back and lived with your parents.
Lived with her parents. And we still was trying to go to church. I was still trying to do some things. Her father was trying to, he was allowing me to speak at different places. But it just wasn't the same anymore. Because
so when you started back in the world and you started doing those things, how long did that last? Did you get charged, or did something happen and you get arrested for something else?
No. Well, actually what happened was this guy kept calling me over and over and over again. And in the game that I was in, first of all, no. Once I told that wasn't going to happen, it was no. He wanted me to come out to a certain location. He wanted me to bring something with me. I just told my wife, she had just told me, that's it. So I had got rid of mostly everything, and I had hid something else in the basement. But I had got mostly really everything, and I wasn't re-opping anymore.
You're talking about getting rid of all the cocaine in the house.
I was getting rid of all
So the cocaine was in the house with your wife and children?
Well, no, sometimes it was, but and that was like in brief moments where I had to stop and go. I had places that I would, keep drugs at or have drugs at. I never tried to that's when it got sloppier toward the end, because I was sniffing so much cocaine myself that, you know, my whole face would just be numb, and I never thought I had a problem, because to me it was all mine, and so I would just put more cut on the people stuff that I was selling.
So your relationship with the Lord had deteriorated.
Slowly by slowly, I would start to come to church, and I had my reaching out period where I remember one night I went and got 3 tattoos done in one night, hoping that her father was going to say something. I was looking for someone to say something to me. I didn't know how to ask for help. I would pull up to her church, music blasting. I had a truck then, and you know, different cars. I would just pull up with the music blasting, smoking weed, hoping someone would say something to me.
But no one ever did, Dennis.
No, I came up there one time with blood all over my shirt, and you know. I mean, I was really hoping that someone would say something to me. People were just afraid.
Where was the blood from? Something that...
I had jumped on a couple of guys on a block called street called 7 Mile. I got into it with a guy, road rage.
Okay.
Ended up pulling a guy out of the car and just.
All right. Now I got to get you over to now. You went to the guy. You did. I want because we only have about 10 minutes. We got to get 10 minutes. Right. So tell me. What has happened that caused you to get arrested? Let's get to this.
Okay, well, what happened to get me the cause to be arrested, I had told her, she had gave me an ultimatum that Monday I was supposed to start rehab. So the guy kept calling me back, and he was an informant. I didn't know that he was at the time. He was an informant, and he worked for the Sonic Task Force. So by the time I had come back out there, they had knew everything, and all they really wanted was my phone, because everything was inside of my phone. They knew I had drugs on me, but they really wasn't interested in that. They knew it was in the phone. The phone conversation, right. So.
And they got you.
Okay.
Yeah, so they got me.
And you were locked up when they got you that night, or what?
Yes. They locked me up that night, and so my life changed. I ended up getting sentenced to 10 to 40 years in prison.
Why so much, though? I mean, why was it 10 to 40?
Because of how much
your record?
Drugs, no, how much drugs
so
I had.
It was
a
mandatory.
Right.
Okay.
And where was she, and where were you at this time? Did he call you and tell you what was going on?
Yeah, I was at home. I was waiting for him to come back, because he was like, "This is my last one." Yeah, he said, "This is my last time."
He told you that?
Yeah, and he was coming back, and I remember I was laying on the couch, and I got a collect call, and I didn't believe it. I didn't believe it.
Because you had just told God, whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes.
But he said it was his last one, and in turns, it really was his last one. You know,
well,
right?
seriously, it really was.
Yeah.
So your phone rings. What happens?
I just remember being numb. I didn't want to call my parents. I didn't know who to call and tell. I didn't talk to anybody, I don't think, until the next day or so, when he was like, "You got to call these people." He gave me a list to call. I called his cousin, and I was trying to figure out where we were gonna, because I wasn't working at the time. I was back in school full time, and so trying to figure out what in the world we were gonna do. Working, he had a full-time job. It wasn't like he wasn't working. He had a full-time job that he worked 40 hours a week, sometimes more. So I had to, go up there and deal with that, and I'm dealing with the kids. My youngest was 5 years old, so I have a 5, a 6, and a 7-year-old. So I'm dealing with them and trying to figure out, they didn't go to school for almost, I think, about 2 weeks.
Wow.
Till my best friend called me, and she was like, "What's going on?" And I was like, "I can't get up. I can't do anything."
So you became really depressed?
I became really depressed.
Okay.
And she helped out a lot. She came and she took the kids to school for me every day. And she had a job, so she was sacrificing. And then we just went through the process of getting a lawyer and going through the trial. And he kept saying, "It's going to work out. I'm coming home. I'm coming home." And I kept believing, "Okay, you're going to come home." And he didn't come home.
He didn't come home.
How did you feel when you were in the courtroom and the judge said 10 to 40 years?
I lost it.
Right there.
I went out. I held it in so I could go out the courtroom, because I really didn't want him to see me like that.
We heard her all up and down the hallway.
But I let out. It was just, I lost it in the hallway. I just cried like hysterically like a baby, because I went from my parents' house to him. I'd never been on my own.
Never been on your own.
I didn't know what that meant.
So now you're faced with being on your own.
With 3 children.
With 3 children.
So what was going through your mind, when a judge said 10 to 40?
Well, to me, I knew it was over. You know, I knew it was over. I thought that she was going to go, and I told her.
Okay, so
need to
you
go
felt
and go.
that your family was gone and everything, it was just complete.
I had been through the system before, but never like this. So it was different, and I wanted to cut ties. I wanted her to go on with her life, but you know, it was like final for me. I knew it was time to go to war. I knew it was time to get my mind right, and I couldn't think about the world. I couldn't think about home, and I knew I had to get, you know, mentally ready for what I was getting ready to go face. So,
Did they help you get clean in prison?
no. Everything that you find out here,
it's in the streets.
It's right there.
Yeah.
So
what got me clean was I was glad. I was really tired of the streets. I was really tired. And I could still hear God telling me, you know, it wasn't as easy to do what I was doing with the conscience that I had. And it was killing me. And that led to more usage, trying to numb God's voice, trying to stop hearing him, you know, calling me, knowing I'm supposed to be doing this. You hear a sermon, automatically homiletics pop in my mind. I'm still exegeting text. I'm like, oh, come on, man, you got to stop doing this. So in prison, I just got to the point where I thought, you know, well, maybe God was not for me. Maybe I got this wrong. And I started continuing to study and search and search, and met a Muslim brother who was a Sunni, and he explained to me, he said, look, your problem is that Ishmael was the firstborn, not Isaac. And you were following the wrong one.
Tell us what a Sunni is. What is
A
it?
Sunni is Orthodox Islam, is a Muslim, and he studies and he believes that there is only but one God, and that God is Allah. They believe that Jesus is a good man and a good prophet.
But wasn't that a conflict, you being Seventh-day Adventist and the teaching?
Well, the only thing that I loved about it was, in prison, Christians are kind of weak. Or not kind of, they are. Muslims tend to stand up even to anybody. And then the Sunni Muslims, they include all races, all people. So that seemed more real to me than being Nation of Islam and all those other things. And so the way they pray, how they prostrate themselves on the ground and make salat.
So that empowered you.
That empowered me.
So you saw European American that was in prison, and African American, and Arab, Spanish speaking American. They were Sunnis.
Yeah, they were Sunnis.
So how did this turn you around? Because now you're looking 10 to 40, but not knowing what God is getting ready to do.
Right, I'm looking at this 10 to 40, and I'm just trying to do my time, trying to stay out of the way. You know, 10 years is a long time, but that's just the minimum. And I knew that my tail being long, and then with my temper and the problems I kept getting into, I was going to get in trouble.
And Sharon, what was going on at home with you and the children?
We made a promise.
You made a promise. What was that?
I promised to take care of her in there, and for her to take care of me out here. I won't put you in a situation where you lose me for any more time. Don't put me in a situation out there where, you know, something else has to happen. So we promised to take care of each other and to make sure that no matter what happened, at the end of this, we were going to be all right.
Did you take the children to see them?
Yeah, not as much as he wanted me to, or there was times, because we were still going through issues. There was things that weren't resolved.
Were you angry?
Things that she
I was
found out
very
after
angry.
I got locked up.
I was very angry.
You was.
I was very angry and very hurt. And it wasn't what I signed up for. I knew he had been on the run. I don't know if I was naive. I had to leave Detroit. I had to go where my parents were. I went into an apartment I couldn't afford, lost that apartment, wound up living with my parents. Now it's 4 of us living with my parents in a 3-bedroom apartment.
Now, let me ask you this. What about, okay, you got out early. You didn't do 10 years. No. You know, what happened?
We have 5 minutes.
Okay,
Tell
well,
us.
what happened was, you know, I ended up denouncing Islam because, you know, after further study, I found out that prior to taking Shahada, that I was worse than an infidel, and Allah could not have blessed me. So as I look back at my life,
what's Shahada?
It's like an ooth or a prayer that you take to come in. And it's like accepting Jesus in your heart, except you know. So anyway, finding that out, I denounced. I said I wanted to be a Christian. Got into a situation where, you know, they had to move me. Accepted Christianity full time. Promised God that when I got out, that my first promise was that when I got in, to not let me out until I had changed. So now that he had worked with me, and I had promised him that no matter what I do when I get out, that, you know, I was going to tell everybody that I could about who he has been to me, and that if he would just give me my family back, because Sharon had filed for divorce. And so at the end, I would do anything, whatever it is, but I have to have my children back. I found out that 3 out of 4 children who have an incarcerated parent will become incarcerated themselves. I have 4 children, so I had to choose which one. I said none. So I had to think about my thinking. There were some things I had to do differently. I had to man up. I had to recreate myself. I had to think about my thinking, change my choice points. And that's the first thing I needed to do. I needed to come back and I needed to date my girl. I needed to date her. I needed to show her that I'm not the same person, that I could be the man that she met. And I was and I told her, I said, you can keep your boyfriend.
But you got out.
I'll win.
You got out. You know?
We got 3 minutes. Okay. You got out.
So what was the decision? I mean, with the probation officer?
Well, the law changed.
This is
how
the law changed.
That was the cocaine law.
Right, the drug law changed in 93.
Okay.
And it
2000.
It changed. And so everything was different now. You know, he didn't have to do the full 10 years. He only had to do the 5.
So I say God rewrote the law for me. I always tell people that.
Yes,
so that's what he did. He allowed me to get out a little bit earlier, or 5 years earlier, and I've been able to do some wonderful things since I've been home. I've been preaching everywhere. We have our own little program, He Said, She Said, that we do for marriage, counseling, and we have my program, Thugged Out, Transition to Home, Using God's Gifts, Education, Discipleship, Obedience, Understanding, and Trust.
I know, and I'm so happy that the children are doing well because I see them with you out and about. We have about a minute. Sharon, tell me what you're doing now. You said you finished your undergrad in accounting.
Yes, I did.
What are you doing now?
I'm working on my master's in business administration with a concentration in international business and corporate finance.
That is wonderful. And Dennis, you?
Case manager at Southwest Solutions, supportive services for veterans and families. I'm also working on my master's, my MSW at USC with a concentration on veteran affairs.
And USC is what?
University of Southern Cal, virtual online.
Oh, wow. That is wonderful.
Excellent.
Well, when we talk about having to hold, why didn't you leave, Sharon? You could have left. For better or for worse, you could have left. Why not?
I thought about it. I did the paperwork to do it. And then God said no. He came home. My husband reclaimed me. And God put us back together and said, this is what I meant. You guys said forever. And I think of the vows, let no man put us under, that means even us.
We want you to tell our viewers today how to make it work. What do they need to do in these last 30 seconds?
You have to love her past your vows. Pass the vows and be committed to your commitment. That's it. You got to be committed beyond your vows.
Sharon?
Forgiveness. Forgiveness and unconditional love.
Well, to having to hold. Are there closing remarks?
Well, I think we're real blessed to have this couple with us today. I think the opportunity is there for anybody to overcome tragedy and difficulty. The Lord has spared your life for a moment just like this, so I encourage you. And I really support both of you in everything that you do.
Well, listen, we love you. God bless you. Yes. I'm Dr. Kim Logan Nolan.
And I'm Arthur Nolan.
To have and to hold, make it work. God bless you.
Make it work.
Hi, I'm